All right, hey guys. So we're here to read chapters 4, 5, and 6 of the Goosebumps Horrorland Revenge of the Living Dummy. The last 3 chapters we read, we had a lot of characters introduced. We have Brittany, the main character. We have Molly, who is Brittany's best friend. We have Ethan, who is Brittany's cousin. Mr. Bad Boy, which is Ethan's dummy that he has. And then, of course, we have Brittany's mom and dad. At the end of chapter 3, right where we left off, was Ethan was introducing Mr. Bad Boy to Brittany, and basically the dummy's hand hit Brittany in the face. So that's where we're going to be picking up off after. All right, hope you guys are ready. Here we go. Chapter 4. Whoa. A sharp pain shot through my head. I pressed my hands against my throbbing temples, trying to push the pain away. Be careful with that thing, Dad scolded Ethan. It wasn't my fault, Ethan cried, backing away from me. Mr. Bad Boy did it. Here we go again, I thought. Ethan moved the dummy's mouth up and down. I'm a bad boy, the dummy said in a shrill baby voice. Mom turned and hurried to the fridge. We'd better put some ice on it, Britt, she said. You're going to have a bump. I glared at Ethan. Was it an accident? Sometimes Mr. Bad Boy doesn't know his own strength, Ethan said. Ethan, how about saying you're sorry? Dad said. Mr. Bad Boy is very sorry, Ethan said. I pushed past him and headed to the door. Forget the ice, I said, rubbing my forehead. I'm going over to Molly's. Mom hurried after me. She stopped me in the front hall. Take Ethan with you, she said in a whisper. Mom, please, no, I said. Mom put both hands on my shoulders and narrowed her eyes at me through her glasses. Brittany, he just got here. Don't be rude. Remember what I said about getting off to a good start? He already gave me a bruise, I cried. But I could see she meant business. I sighed. Okay. I saw Ethan near the kitchen door and I called to him. Want to come over to Molly's? Excellent, Ethan replied. I'll bring Mr. Bad Boy. Thrills, I thought. We stepped outside into the cool, windy evening. The sun had started to dip behind the trees, sending long shadows across the grass. Molly lives 3 houses down on the other side of the street. A short walk, but Ethan kept dancing around me, sticking his foot out, trying to trip me. Give me a break, I pleaded. He just giggled in reply. He has a phony hyena giggle that could drive anyone crazy. I rang the bell, and a few seconds later, Molly came to the door. She was wearing faded jeans and a yellow t-shirt with the words Mamba Rules in red across the front. Her dad always brings her t-shirts from the weird places he visits. Don't ask me where on earth Mamba is. She let out a groan when she saw Ethan. Shake hands with Mr. Bad Boy, Ethan told her. He stuck out the dummy's wooden hand. Mr. Bad Boy, this is Molly, Brittany's geeky friend. Nice. Molly frowned at the dummy and said, He's almost as ugly as you are, Ethan. Good one. I laughed and slapped her a high five. I'm a bad boy, the dummy said. Perfect, Molly muttered. She led us down the hall to her room. Dad just got back this morning from one of his crazy trips, she said. Mamba. It's an island. He's totally pumped. I guess he found some strange dolls there. Professor Malloy is kind of famous. He works for museums. He says he's a folklore expert. He travels all over the world and brings back ugly, evil-looking dolls and ancient toys and voodoo stuff and skulls and things. He keeps some of it on display up in his attic. He calls it his Museum of the Weird. He always wants to show it off. But Molly and I don't like to go up there. It totally creeps us out. Ethan put his mouth to my ear and burped really loudly. I jerked away from him. Ethan, that's not funny, he giggled. It's a riot. We turned the corner to Molly's room and bumped into Mr. Malloy. He's big and tall, with a big belly that hangs over his pants. He always wears baggy khakis that are all wrinkled and stained and sloppy white shirts. His dark brown hair is long and wild. He has a great smile, a big booming laugh that shakes his belly, and deep blue eyes that just stare. They don't blink when you talk to him. He likes to sing in a funny deep voice, and he's always trying to scare Molly and me with his weird stories. My dad calls him Wild Man Malloy. He said hi to me, then turned his gaze on Ethan. I remember you, he said. Brittany's cousin. And what do we have here? He lifted Bad Boy off Ethan's shoulder and held the dummy up to study it. Interesting, interesting. Mr. Malloy examined the wooden head carefully. He ran his finger over the chipped bottom lip. Then he reached a hand beneath Mr. Bad Boy's shirt and made the mouth snap up and down. Interesting dummy, he said. Ethan, where did this guy come from? Ethan shrugged. My dad found him. I don't know where. I named him Mr. Bad Boy because he's a really bad dude. Mr. Malloy chuckled. Interesting. He rubbed his hand over the dummy's painted brown hair. Why does it look so familiar? I could swear I've seen this dummy somewhere before. He handed Mr. Bad Boy back to Ethan. I have some books on ventriloquism. Maybe you'd like to borrow one. I don't have to talk for him, Mr. Ethan said. Mr. Bad Boy talks for himself. Molly and I looked at each other. We both rolled our eyes. Yeah, sure, I muttered. Come upstairs, Mr. Malloy said. I've got something very interesting to show you guys. Something I just brought back from Mumba. Maybe later, Dad, Molly said. We don't really want... Mr. Malloy tugged Molly toward the stairs. Come on up to the attic. You won't be sorry, he said with a wide, devilish grin. You want to stare into the face of pure evil, don't you? Chapter 5. Ethan's eyes flashed with excitement. Cool, he said. We followed Mr. Malloy up to his attic museum. The stairs were narrow and steep and creaked and groaned under our footsteps. Whenever I come up here, I feel as if I'm stepping into a haunted house. For one thing, it's very dark and shadowy. Mr. Malloy says that bright light will damage some of his displays. He keeps everything in glass showcases. It's also creepy and weird. As you walk past the glass cases, dozens of eyes stare out at you. Cool, check this out, Ethan cried. He pointed to a case. I squinted in the dim light. 6 snake heads, their jaws wide open. Disgusting. Mr. Malloy stepped up beside Ethan. Those snake heads were used for gambling, he said. Just like dice. You hold them between your hands and shake them, then toss them to the floor. Want to try it? No thanks, Molly said quickly. She pulled her dad away. Ethan looked disappointed. He held Mr. Bad Boy up and showed him the snake heads. A long, skinny animal skull with 2 rows of pointed teeth grinned at me from the next case. I hurried past it. And the next case, too. It contained 2 little blue dolls with long blonde hair. Their faces were all twisted as if they were crying. In the next case, a pile of black fur. I looked closer. No, a stuffed animal? With a tiny mouse caught between its curled fangs? Molly says the attic gives her bad dreams. I don't know how she can fall asleep downstairs knowing that all these horrible creatures are right above her head. Over here, guys, Mr. Malloy called. Here's the new one you've got to check out. The 3 of us stepped around the case and gazed down through the glass. Oh, sick, I moaned. I felt my stomach lurch. Totally sick, Molly murmured. Is that a real shrunken head? Ethan asked. Mr. Malloy nodded. I've never seen anything like it in all my travels, he said. Its body is carved of wood, and it has an actual human head attached to the shoulders. I took a deep breath and gazed down at it. It was about 12 inches tall. The face was shriveled like an old prune and was of vomit green color. There were tiny slits where the eyes had once been. Thin wisps of black hair stood straight up from its scalp. Awesome, Ethan said. Can I hold it? I don't think so, Mr. Malloy replied. When I tell you the story of this doll, I don't think you'll want to come anywhere near it. He chuckled as if he'd just told a good joke. Dad, this is really gross, Molly said, shaking her head. She turned her back to the case. You're not going to keep it here, are you? Let me tell you a story, Mr. Malloy said. The doll is called a mind stealer. The legend goes that if you touch it, you are doomed. Its eyes will open and glow. You will hear a loud, painful buzz, and it will steal your mind right out of your head. My mouth suddenly felt dry. I wanted to stop staring at the ugly thing, but I could not take my eyes off of it. They say the doll has already claimed 20 minds, Mr. Malloy said. 20 poor victims who were left brainless, empty blanks. I felt a chill run down the back of my neck. Ethan giggled, but I could tell he was frightened too. Molly kept her back to the display case. She tossed her coppery hair back over her shoulder. Can we go now? She asked. I couldn't help myself. I leaned down to get a closer look at the doll. I stared at the tiny shriveled head. It was a little smaller than a softball, but it had once been alive. It had once been a live human being. Was it a man or a woman? I lowered my face to the glass, and I let out a cry as the doll whispered, How about a kiss, babe? Chapter 6. Startled, I stumbled back and nearly knocked Molly over. Mr. Malloy laughed. Good one, Ethan, he said. Ethan grinned at me. I'm a pretty good ventriloquist, he said. I got you, Brittany. He did a fast tap dance and ended up by stomping hard on my foot. Ethan, you're so not funny, I cried. I could feel my face turning hot. I knew I was blushing. How embarrassing to fall for that trick. Molly turned to her dad. Do you really believe that mind-stealing stuff? She asked. He scratched his head. I take all these legends seriously, he said. The legends tell a lot about people and their beliefs. Yes or no? Molly asked. Do you think it can steal minds or not? Her dad was silent for a moment. Then he said, Yes, I guess I do believe it. Molly's mouth dropped open. Dad, if you believe this awful doll is so dangerous, how can you keep it in our house? It's under triple thick glass, Mr. Malloy replied. That should make it safe. But Dad, I'm still studying it, he told her. I've got to call in some experts. There are people who know a lot more about the doll than I do. I'm waiting to hear from them. In the meantime, I believe the triple thick glass will make sure that before he could finish, that brat Ethan cried, Brittany, you're blocking my view! And he bumped me hard from behind into the doll case. As my forehead hit the glass, I saw the doll bounce. Then I heard a loud bzzz. I gasped, Oh no, my mind! Ooh, okay. So here are my questions to you. What is a good character trait to describe Ethan and why? So you have to give me a character trait and tell me why you think he's like that. Also, my next question, predict what you think that buzz sound could be. Alright guys, I hope you are really liking this book. So far, Ethan's kind of freaking me out, and definitely Mr. Bad Boy. I think something's going on with him because he's acting kind of weird. I look forward to reading your comments, and let me know if you have any comments down below. Bye for now.